Hello, I'm Jonathan M0JSX. Thanks very much for joining me again. This time we're going to have a look at the brand new Icom ID-52, and I'm going to share my thoughts on the newest D-Star FM dual band handheld from Icom. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. I've got a second camera set up as well, so you can see exactly what's happening in front of me, and you can see briefly what we're going to have a look at today. So obviously the radio comes in its box with the manual as well, and I also want to mention very quickly about the charger that's supplied with the radio. So this is the charger that is supplied with the radio, and you might think it looks a little bit odd, particularly for the UK market. Well, that's because it's a European 2-pin style charger, which Icom UK have put this Euro to 3-pin adapter on. Previously, Icom UK replaced the charger inside all the radios, so things like the ID-51 in the past. Icom UK would take out the 2-pin adapter that Japan supplied and instead provided their own charger. Icom UK have clearly taken the decision not to do that anymore and just provide the adapter. So if you do get one that looks like this, there's nothing wrong. You haven't got a grey import or anything like that. It's how they're now being supplied by Icom UK and to all of the UK major dealers. Just worth noting that, because when it sits in the wall, it's going to sit like that. So you're going to see it like that when it's plugged in the wall. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Works absolutely fine. I've used mine, as you might expect. That's that little caveat over. Let's dive in and let's have a look at the radio itself then. So the first thing that sort of greets you when you're looking at the radio is just how big the radio is, and it is not a small handheld by any means. I think it's a nice size though when you're holding it in the hand, and it's a little bit difficult for me to do and sort of have a good position on it, but it feels like it's a really nice size. On the left hand side of the radio, we've got a really large PTT button with those sort of that sort of matrix bobbly design, not quite sure what to call it, but a raised area so you can easily identify the PTT. Below that is the squelch button, or the squelch defeat button. Also, you press that button and turn the knob on the top in order to set the squelch level if you wanted to change that. Below that is sort of that mauve coloured on-off button, which is obviously how you turn the radio on and off. It's also how you can take a screenshot if you enable that in the software or in the settings. Below that and under this cover is the micro SD card slot. I happen to have one installed at the moment. You can use pretty much any size. I happen to have a spare 32GB card laying about. Doesn't have to be anywhere near that big, to be honest with you. An 8GB card would be absolutely fine. Even a 4GB card would be okay for most applications. And it just slides in there. One thing that Icom want you to know, and it's printed quite big in the manual, is that those terminals, those golden terminals, go towards the front of the radio. It could be fairly easy to force it in the other way around. You're likely to break the micro SD card connector inside the radio. Not so good. On the other side, we have, under this flap at the top, the 2-pin speaker mic connector. It's the same connector that Icom have been using for quite a while now. It is this sort of recessed design with the oval, so just be careful. Whatever you buy in order to use with the radio, whether that be of Icom, a manufacturer, or a third party, make sure it's got that sort of rounded to it, and it's got most of the connectors have a sort of a rubber gasket around them as well, to maintain the waterproof seal of the radio. So that's just worth noting, that is recessed. One thing what is worth noting is that you won't be able to use the IC705 supplied microphone with this, the HM243 I think it is. You can't use that with the ID-52 due to the lack of DC mic bias on the 52. Below that and right at the bottom, if I can peel it up and don't get my hands completely in the way of the camera, we have the micro USB connector, and also the charging port as well. Now, it's nice that they've put a USB port on the ID-52. I think it's been long overdue. It's something we did see initially for the first time with the Kenwood THD74. One thing that the ID-52 has over the D74 is the fact that this will do USB charging. And of course, it also means you could charge this from a battery power bank as well. On the rear of the radio, we find the rather large BP272 battery, which is the 1880 milliamp hour battery. There is, of course, available optionally the BP271, which is a smaller capacity, it's about 1500 milliamp hours, or you can also get the much larger BP307, which will give you about 3 amp hours. That was launched alongside the IC705, will also work with the ID-52. Just snaps on the back, and you also get this belt clip and lanyard in the box as well. Let's look at the front of the radio, and I must just say as a disclaimer, I've got a screen protector on, and I must say it's not a very good one. It keeps sort of peeling off the top, so I'm just going to squeeze that back down. And I'm going to go into why I've got a screen protector and why I think you might want to as well in a little while, but just I've got that. Turning the radio on, we can see it's a very large colour display. Now I'm a fan, because I've taken the battery off, it's asked me to confirm which one I've got. So I've got the BP272, so I'm going to select that one. Very large screen. I'm a fan of dark mode on my phone and my computer, so I always enable dark mode. So the first thing I did when I got the 52 was to enable the darker background with the white text. It's entirely up to you though. You can have that white background with black text if you prefer. As I say, that is personal preference. Both are very good. I just prefer this look to the radio. You've got 2 VFOs, which Icom refer to as band A and band B, top and bottom, and they have got slightly different frequency ranges. And rather than me just rattling off what they are, I'm going to put them on the screen just here, so you can have a look at what the different band ranges are. But essentially, one VFO is going to give you aircraft receive, one VFO is not. That is the broad total of it. On the front panel below the big screen, we've got the menu button, which also on a long press is your lock button. Below that, we've got the mode and the scan button on the long press. The main and dual, if you wanted to make it a single receiver, press and hold that button. Then you've got the VFO or megahertz button, memory recall, and the quick button. And I was surprised at how often you are pressing the quick button when you want to do some functions. In the middle, we've got the standard D-pad arrangement with the enter button in the middle, which is very useful, particularly when you're in the DR mode. Hopping into the menu very quickly, let's have a quick look here. So it's very similar to things like the IC7300, the IC9700, and of course the IC705, as well as also the ICR8600 as well. Here are some features which are on here. So you've got a voice recorder, and actually a voice keyer as well. That's something I've never seen on a handle before, but I can see the use if you go maybe on a SOTA or POTA and you wanted to call CQ for quite a long time on 2 meters maybe on the calling frequency, then you can easily do that with the voice keyer on your ID-52. You've also got the recording functionality, so that's going to record both your transmitted and received signals. Got the FM radio as well, which works very nicely, and you also have I think about 500 memories on the standard FM radio receiver. Not quite sure why you would need that many, but you have them. You've got the scope as well, which is something that I'm going to go into a little bit in detail in just a moment's time, but you've got a scope on here as well. You've got the call sign information that you've received. The DV gateway, which is how you access both the terminal mode and the access point mode. I know that there are some applications out there. In fact, if you watch the video that I did for my previous employer at Martin Lynch & Sons, where we did use the Doozy program with the IC705, that will also work here on the ID-52. Next up is the picture mode, where you can transmit and receive pictures over D-Star. We have the GPS, so that's how we change all of the GPS information. So if you wanted to, you can turn the GPS off, or you can make it manual, entirely up to you. By default it's on, and also by default is the GPS logger switched on. One of the first things I do is go in and turn that off. I don't know quite why it's switched on by default, but it is, so I just turn it off as one of the first things I do. Next up is the settings menu, and this feels very familiar if you've used an IC705 or similar. Here you can change pretty much everything on the radio. You can change the sound, you can change the display. So if you wanted to, that's how you change between black and white as the background color. It's a really easy to use menu system. One of the first things you're going to want to do is go and set your call sign up. So that's how you do that. And you can easily set it up in there. And then finally, it's memory. So this is going to show you the memory channels. as well as under repeater list, that's your DR mode. So that's how you access that as well. And you can also manage that as well. So if you wanted to edit a memory, you can do that here as well, by clicking that quick button. I say, surprising how often you rely on that quick button. If you have it on a single VFO mode, so I've just got band A on and I've turned off band B, you can have either the GPS position displayed, or you can have the time and date displayed. So that's a nice useful feature. I'm going to now go in and just turn on that scope, because I think that's a really useful feature. It's something that I've never seen on a handheld before, but I actually think it makes so much sense. And it also goes a long way to justifying the price. Again, we're going to come to that in a minute. So the scope, I think, is a really useful feature. It can show you, as you can see here, I'm seeing a 4 megahertz of bandwidth. So that's nice to see. So if you're on, let's say, the 2 meter band, you could see the top end. Let's say you were centered around the calling frequency at 145,500. You could have that bang in the middle, and that way you'd see 145 to 146 megs. So logically, all of the simplex channels and repeater channels that you might want to QSY to. So that's nice, and there are several modes here. So you can either have it as the scroll fixed mode, which is how I have it, and how I probably suggest you have it, or you can have it in the center mode, so you are the center frequency, or you can just have it in the standard fixed mode. The reason why you might not do that over in fact, there's a good demonstration there. So my hotspot is up at sort of 438 megahertz. The fixed mode is set up on the ID-52 to be between 433 megs and 434 megs. So I'm way off the edge of that. So that's not really very helpful. That's why scroll fixes that for me. Very quickly going to want to show you the DR mode, which is very useful. So I'm in it on the top, but let's just come out of it. So ordinarily you could have two, these are just normal memory channels, or I could have maybe that on a standard simplex VFO mode. By pressing and holding the DR button, I'm going into the DR mode. And this is how you access this really nice near repeater functionality that Icom have used for many years. So it uses your GPS coordinates, and as long as your repeater list in your radio that you've loaded up, either the one provided by Icom UK, or you've done your own, and I happen to do my own, you've got the correct GPS positions for all the repeaters, you can go in here and you can select near repeater. Now you can either go show all, so that's going to show both D-Star and FM repeaters, or you can do just digital, or you can do just FM. Now near me there's not very many D-Star repeaters, so it's just going to show FM ones here, but that's really easy. I can then go in there and select, for me, my nearest repeater, which is the Didcot repeater GB3DI. It was really useful. I went to Lancaster before Christmas. I had already loaded up the radio with all of the repeaters in the UK. So when I was up there, I was able to select a near D-Star repeater and had a few contacts through that. And I was able to also link up with the nearest FM repeater as well. Really nice and simple. And it's nice to see that Icom have once again blown it away with the DR functionality. So overall, I think the radio is fantastic. I really loved using it. I must just say, I did buy this with my own money. It's not sponsored or anything like that. I did pay the money for it. So it's a really, really lovely radio. I think it is worth the money. It is the most expensive handheld on the market, which you can say with some confidence now the THD74 is no longer around. At time of recording, this retails at £519.95, which is a lot of money. Let's not get around that. But I actually think for everything you're getting in here, and it much like the IC705, which I've owned for just over a year, the more I use it, the more I love it, and the more I think it's definitely worth that price tag. Now, I did want to mention why I think the screen protector that I've got on it is important. And as I said, this one is not particularly good. I need to contact the company I bought it from to say it's not sticking onto the top of the display very well, but it's doing the job for me. And it's all because I've also got the little protective case for my ID-52, the LC193, which is available. It's a nice little case. It does the job. It's sort of this leatherette style. It's not real leather, you can tell, but it's fine. It does what it needs to do. But however, it has the same issue that a lot of these cases have got. And I'm just going to pop the radio in and I can show you. And I first noticed this on the old ICE92D that I had for a while. So I had the case for that as well. It was a very similar style case and actually a very similar size radio to the ID-52. So the radio's in the case. Now, if you're going about your day-to-day life, there is a chance, albeit small, that stuff will just fall in there. You can see there's that little gap. Now, with time and as sort of everything works out, that gap between the front of the case and the front of the radio gets bigger. I'm sort of extenuating it there, but that gets bigger. And what I found was bits of stuff and dust and crumbs worked their way down that gap, which then started to press between the plastic on the front of the case and the screen itself, and ended up damaging the screen of the radio itself. And there was no way to overcome that. I could try and replace the screen or replace the plastic screen cover, but ultimately I knew it was there. So that's why I've got the screen protector on. So if stuff does happen to fall down, it's only going to go as far as that screen protector. It's not going to damage the case. I also recommend this, which is the Icom VS3, the Bluetooth headset, which I've had for some time. I bought this secondhand off eBay, but they are nice and useful. I didn't like the supplied earphones, so I just use a set of Apple earbuds, which work very nicely with it. But because obviously the ID-52 has Bluetooth on board, that's a nice addition. So maybe you could pop that on your belt and then just have that up on your sort of collar, and you're easily able to make QSOs to your hotspot or maybe your local repeater if you can get into it. It's just a really nice added thing, and it means it's wireless. There's none of those wires apart from the ones that go from this into your ears. So my final thoughts on the ID-52. I think it's a lovely radio. I think the receiver is brilliant. I think the transmitter is fantastic as well. One thing that I've been really blown away by is just how loud the speaker gets. It gets very loud. And that's a comment I always had with the ID-51, is that I never felt the ID-51 got loud enough, particularly if I was using it in the car, which I did sometimes do. I've used the 52 in the car. It gets more than loud enough in order to hear over the road noise, which is nice. It's that screen, that colour screen is brilliant. It's certainly a really nice size to look at with that scope on as well. And I also have the fact it's got that voice Kia as well. That's a really nice addition. So do I think it's worth the price? I think I do. It's certainly a lot of money, but actually if this is going to be your handheld that's going to last you through the next 10 maybe 15 years, then certainly I think it is probably worth that price tag. You might want to consider buying an extra battery for it. Icom are currently producing spare batteries for the moment, but Icom have a bit of a history of, as soon as they've discontinued the radio that the battery goes to, they quite quickly discontinue the battery as well. So if you are buying an ID-52, you might want to consider buying a spare battery at the same time. Thanks very much for watching. I hope this video was of use to you. I'm going down this sort of unscripted format because I think I flow a little bit better than reading words off a script. I hope you enjoy it as well. Next time, I've got a video coming up on how and why I also have an American call sign as a Brit living in the UK. That video will be coming up very soon. For now, thanks very much for watching. Please, if you've come across my channel, maybe this is the second or third video you found of mine that you've liked, perhaps you consider subscribing. That'd be really good. I'm almost at that 1,000 subscriber mark, and I'd love to get there hopefully by the end of the month. Let's keep our fingers crossed for that. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. 73. Bye bye.